Welcome to our webinar on strengthening the educator workforce pipeline with free resources and shortages for tackling educator shortages. My name is Laura Shankland. I'm with American Institutes for Research, and we will do introductions of the rest of our team in just a few minutes. I'm going to give a quick overview of our Zoom platform. I know most of us have been working virtually on some sort of platform for more than a year, but just in case, these are features. If you look in the lower bar there, you can see to the lower left the keys to control the audio and the video. You'll see mute in the lower left, and we do ask that if you are not speaking, you remain muted. And you can see the feature for the video camera there, and if you don't want your video shown on the recording, you can just stay off camera. You will also see the participant button there, and if you select that, you can see who's online. And you will also be able to access our feedback button, which includes the raise hand features. If you want to speak up, you can just click that, and the presenter can call on you, and you can go ahead and comment or ask questions. You are also welcome to use the chat box either to ask or answer questions, or if you're having any technical problems, our tech support person will help you. I think all that's pretty straightforward, but feel free to type in the chat box if you have any questions. Our agenda for today is welcome and introductions, and then we are going to give you an overview of a state comparison brief we have done on addressing educator workforce shortages. We are then going to dig into the Colorado context and show you a little bit of our GIS work. Then we're going to tell you about some of our opportunities for additional resources and support, and tell you a little bit about our team registration process for those supports. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Carolyn Haug from the Colorado Department of Education and Dale Lewis with the Region 12 Comprehensive Center to get us going with our content.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar introducing a few newly available tools and optional technical assistance, all related to addressing the educator shortage issues here in our state in Colorado. For those with us here today and those who are viewing it later, we hope you will find these offerings useful. My name is Carolyn Haug, and I'm the Director of Research and Impact in the Educator Talent Division at the Colorado Department of Education. Our team supports work related to developing a diverse pipeline of high-quality educators. We do this by conducting research, developing workforce data metrics, and disseminating important information. I'd like to take a minute to provide a brief background on the CDE and Region 12 Comprehensive Center project. This project entails collaboration on the creation of what we call GIS, or Geographic Information System maps. You may refer to them also as dashboards that you're going to see today. In addition, the center has conducted a 50-state scan of policies and practices that are currently being used, or at least were in use as of a couple months ago, across the country to address issues related to educator shortages. And then in addition to that, the center is also offering technical assistance to facilitate conversations with you and your teams related to your data and some of the other data in our state. So one of the key aspects of this project is that it links education data that exists not only in our office at CDE, but across other offices at CDE, and it brings it together with data from other agencies to increase a more collective understanding of our geographic contexts. So one of our beliefs is that by coupling a deep look at contextual factors with your stakeholder experiences and perspectives can provide a new opportunity to address issues in new ways. With that said, I'm going to introduce the rest of the team here with us today. Dale Lewis is the director of the Region 12 Comprehensive Center and also is the director on this particular Colorado project. Jessica Giffin is a project consultant with the Region 12 team. Andrea Guiden is also another project coordinator with the team. And Laura Shankland, whom you've already met, is a project coordinator, project consultant, sorry, with the project too. So I'll turn this back over to Dale now.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. Go ahead and go to the next slide. That'd be great. All right, so welcome. Glad you're joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us this afternoon. I'm going to talk a little bit about the objectives here and set us up before we pass it over to Jessica and Andrea to dive more deeply into some of the content. But at the end of our session today, we hope that you'll be able to identify some common practices and innovative approaches to strengthening the educator workforce pipeline. You'll get a better sense of those, certainly from the brief that'll be forthcoming. We're going to take a little bit of time to demonstrate the use of the Geographic Information Systems map that Carolyn mentioned. And that map can be used really to help explore challenges in the educator workforce pipeline, successes, and then also opportunities for improvement. And then we'll invite you to consider registering for additional supports and opportunities to engage with us in some future data analysis sessions using the map, and then also to participate in the community of practice on strengthening the educator workforce pipeline. So, but before we dive into those things, I just want to share a little bit about the Comprehensive Centers program that supported this work with the Colorado Department of Education. So we are one of 19 regional centers that you see depicted on this map. You can see us there in the center. We're Region 12, and we all share a common goal the regional centers do to help improve opportunities and outcomes for all students, particularly those students from groups who have historically been underserved. And we're funded through a 5-year U.S. Department of Education grant that began back in October of 2019. So we're about a little bit more than 18 months along in our 5-year cycle here. And we support Colorado, Kansas, and Missouri in tackling high leverage problems, such as the work we're highlighting today, focusing on how well we attract, prepare, and retain high quality teaching workforce in Colorado. You can find more about, go back one second there, Laura, appreciate it. Yeah, you can find out a little bit more about our work in each of our states, including an additional project in Colorado by visiting our website that you see referenced there, and then also by keeping up with us on Twitter. All right, next slide. So you might be wondering, out of all of the education issues that we could help states grapple with, how do we decide where to focus? So in general, we look for high leverage opportunities that meet these 3 criteria that you see here in this slide. First, if they're successfully addressed, that these opportunities would result in substantial improvements for all students, and particularly those historically underserved or marginalized groups that I mentioned a minute ago. Second, they are priorities for policymakers in the state, particularly the state commissioners of education who approve our work plans. And then third, they require intensive support and close work alongside our state education agencies really to affect change. And so rather than supporting a wide variety of improvement efforts, our focus is really on 1 or 2 opportunities in each state where we can dive a little bit more deeply and increase the potential for impact. So ultimately, we really want to avoid the fate of Sisyphus, who you see here, pushing this boulder. So we want to avoid, having an eternity of moving that boulder up the mountain only to have it roll back on us each time. And so instead, what we really want to do is focus on getting that boulder to the summit and then over to the other side where that improvement momentum can really take hold. Next slide. All right, so as I've mentioned, one of our projects in Colorado, as Carolyn mentioned at the beginning here, focuses on strengthening the educator workforce pipeline by enlisting these place-based approaches to understanding and responding to challenges in attracting, preparing, and retaining educators. In our first year of the work, we developed a GIS map to help explore and analyze a variety of workforce pipeline data. And then last summer, we collected some feedback from stakeholders, and I see some of you all here on the call today on that first version of the map, what we call version 1.0. And then based on that feedback, we've made some revisions on our way to version 2.0, which will be forthcoming and you'll get some insights into today. And we've also been thinking a little bit about how we frame the use of the map in helping folks uncover innovative practices and bright spots in the field, and then how the maps can also be used really to support and facilitate data-driven decision making. So we really look forward to sharing our work with you today, and ultimately to the possibility of helping to support collaborations among teams of you in the near future. And I'm going to transition now back to Laura, who's got a little poll so we can find out who's in the room today.
Thank you, Dale. And you can see the roles there. I like to call this Enough About Us, Let's Talk About You part of the webinar. And we've got a poll that we're going to launch and would ask you to pick the role that best describes or best represents the work that you do. And I'll take just a few seconds there to let everyone respond to that. And you can see the different roles, BOCES representative, district administrator, educator, prep program, faculty and staff, school leadership, special services provider, teacher, or other. And if you are other, please type that in the chat box. And I see we have had one person do that, who's an HR manager. And I think we've had a few others, so if you can type those in the chat box. It looks like people are still responding. And be sure, if you see your role represented in the poll, go ahead and pick it there. And I will ask our tech support to go ahead and end the poll and show the results. So it looks like we've got a pretty good mix here. I'm seeing a lot of education preparation program staff here, and some folks from districts, and then some other diverse roles. So regardless of your role, we're glad to have you here and appreciate your joining us. And we certainly hope you will tell your colleagues about these opportunities as well. And we can go ahead and stop sharing that poll. And I am now going to turn it over to Andrea Guiden, who is going to tell us a little bit about what we've learned from other states and how they are handling the educator shortage.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. My name is Andrea Guiden, and I work with the American Institutes for Research. And we were charged with collaborating with the Region 12 Center and with the Colorado Department of Education to do an exploratory scan and basically find out what are states across the entire nation doing to address these educator workforce shortages? What's happening innovatively? What strategies have districts and states developed as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic? What are they doing to ensure that we attract, that we prepare, and that we retain teachers in a way that could be useful to the Colorado context? And so we created a brief. And here, this slide gives just a brief overview of what this brief provides. First of all, it compiles a list of resources from various state education agencies, as well as national organization websites that direct the reader to resources, tools, methods, practices, strategies that are leading edge as it relates to solving or mitigating educator shortages. The brief also highlights the programs that are considered innovative or unusual or especially effective in mitigating these shortages. And then finally, the brief provides a wealth of information about ways in which you can attract, prepare, and retain professional staff. And that's not just teachers, but it's professional staff overall as it relates to educators. So as we conducted this exploratory scan, we realized that there were 7 groups of strategies or 7 categories that we would consider to be common strategies for addressing professional workforce shortages. And I've listed those strategies here on this slide. The first would be grow your own, which is where a state or a local area seeks individuals who are already in that area, residing in that area, and using their skills, their talents, their resources to train, prepare teachers to enter the workforce in their particular area. Grow Your Own is a very popular, is probably among the most popular of all of the ways of addressing shortages that we located. Alternative Routes and Pathways, that's national organizations such as Teach for America, the New Teacher Project, but also state alternatives preparation and certification programs. And those would vary by state. And my understanding is that Colorado has multiple ones of those. And it's a way that you get teachers or introduce teachers into the pipeline. Reciprocity, was also a common way where you take an individual who has licensure from one state and then it transfers to a different state, sometimes with additional requirements, sometimes not. States also used financial incentives in order to attract teachers into the field, and those financial incentives differed depending on the funding sources that were available to a particular state or district. We also have educator preparation partnerships that we recognize throughout the country, modifications to certification requirements, and then finally, teacher career development opportunities. And these we're classifying as ways that teachers can serve students and serve their school buildings in ways other than being in the classroom. So in that way, it provides multiple pathways for teachers to still serve, still be in their role, but also elevate their current role or give them the opportunity to diversify their skills and talents as a teacher. So what I thought I would do is share with you guys a few innovative examples or a few interesting strategies that we noticed happening across the country. And I want to start with this one. This is a program called Recruiting Washington Teachers, and this is Washington State. And basically what this program does is it targets students that are in junior and senior high school, and it allows them to enroll in a group of courses known as the High School Teacher Academy. So we have courses and curriculum that relate to teaching, that relate to students, and relate to matters of education, pedagogy, to get them interested in teaching, to light the fire under them, and help them understand how teaching or how working in education might be something that they could potentially be interested in. This program also includes an add-on program for bilingual candidates, so they would be a part of the regular traditional route and then have an add-on component. And what it does is it uses state CTE or career and technical education funds to recruit teachers or teacher candidates into the teaching field. And so of these high school juniors and seniors who enrolled in this program, I believe 2 years ago, 93% of them applied to attend college. And of that 93%, 100% of them were accepted to college and we're presuming decided to enter a teacher preparation program. This program also targets students of color. So it's targeting Black and brown students, Asian students, and bilingual students. So this particular program serves multiple purposes. You're diversifying the educator pipeline and you're starting younger, starting with the kids in school and pushing them into the teaching career. Next slide. Another innovative example is taken from Arkansas, and it's a program called Teach Arkansas. And what this does is supports retaining teachers, keeping them in the profession. And so what they do in Arkansas is they feature regional workshops where they go around and talk with teachers, offer professional development workshops, encourage districts and local schools to create various ways for teachers to serve outside of the classroom. And it also allows teachers with 3 years of experience to get additional licenses or additional endorsements in particular fields. As a result of this program, Arkansas noticed that their first increase in educator preparation program enrollment since 2012. So getting the word out there on the benefits of teaching, providing teachers with professional development, they've recognized can have a direct benefit on not only attracting people to the field, but also keeping those that are currently in the field there and displaying the ways that teachers can serve their community and serve their schools in multiple ways. And then one more example is not necessarily taken from a district or a state, but it's from an organization, the Public Impact Group. And in this particular innovative example, we call it opportunity culture. And so during the COVID-19 pandemic, this was especially effective because it includes a virtual platform. So in this case, you can have a teacher who's deemed highly effective lead and oversee learning for a group of 50 or so students. So students that are not just in their charge or in their classroom, but this teacher can be granted access to numbers of students who they wouldn't see if they were actually in person. And this highly effective teacher has the opportunity to teach, impact, and display her skills to several students, resulting in greater student performance and learning gains. In this particular model, you have this lead teacher, and he or she has a team of teaching assistants that help them with the activities, but they are essentially the face of the work. And this is an excellent tool for providing early career support for new teachers who might benefit from that mentor teacher, or observing that master teacher, that master educator actually in work with students in a large group. According to the Public Impact Group, this has resulted in multiple student learning gains in various states across the country. And when you take a look at the brief, you will be directed toward this site. And so you'll get more information about the states who actually implemented this and the benefits that came from it. In terms of COVID-19 and educator shortages, we found that the Mississippi Department of Education was doing some really groundbreaking stuff, very similar to what I mentioned in terms of distance learning. The legislator implemented the Equity and Distance Learning Act. And what they did with that was they built the infrastructure of digital technology for the state so that all students would have access and be able to log on and communicate with their teachers in real time and continue learning. And like the example I gave before, this increases the number of students who are able to learn from a highly qualified teacher through that model. Tennessee also did some interesting things as it related to educator shortages during COVID-19. They launched a website called the Tennessee Teachers Job Connection website. And what this website does is it connects applicants directly with school districts that are in need of a particular type of teacher. So for example, in Tennessee, there are some areas that are particularly rural, like very rural. So they're able to look at teacher applications and direct them toward the district who has a need that aligns best with the teacher candidate's experience, area of expertise, areas of interest. And so in this way, you get a large applicant pool in one particular area. And it's not just one type of applicant, but you get recent graduates, you get licensed professionals, transitioning professionals, you get out-of-state individuals. And so it's one way that they use to put everybody in one section and then channel them out to particular districts. A recruitment effort in many ways. And they particularly use this program to fill the hard to staff teacher positions. Next slide. A couple more highlights about the brief. We realize that not every state has the funding to implement some of these innovative ideas. And so when you read the brief, you'll be able to better understand the funding structures that were used to fund these various innovative examples. And then you will get a wealth of resources that can be used to attract, prepare, and retain education professionals. This brief will be available within the next week. Our plan is to email it to you all. We have everyone's email addresses, and so we will get it into your hands, and you'll be able to experience this information for yourself and potentially reach out to us if you have questions or if you need any additional information. Does anyone have any questions about the brief at this time? Okay, if not, then I will turn it back over to Laura.
Thanks, and I am quickly going to turn things over to Jessica so she can show everyone our Colorado Educator Workforce GIS map. Take it away, Jessica.
All right, thanks everyone. So as we mentioned, there'll be two resources available. First was the brief, and the second is this Educator Workforce GIS map. So I'm going to spend some time explaining what is a GIS map, give you a high-level introduction, and then go and share some additional technical assistance supports that we will be providing. So to help us shift our thinking a little bit, GIS maps use different sorts of data to really understand and unpack what the educator workforce pipeline looks like. And to help us start thinking about that, I'm curious to hear about one or two data sources that you all have used to help you understand some of the challenges around educator shortages, or just to get a better picture of the educator workforce pipeline in any way with your work. So if you could just share in the chat box, maybe one or two data sources that you use. Thanks. So we have one example of troops to teachers. So it looks like recruitment and retention. So satisfaction surveys, right? Getting some qualitative feedback to understand maybe what do teachers like about their workplace, maybe what are some things that they would like to improve, maybe like climate surveys. Great. Any other data sources? Oh, even direct outreach. Thank you, Sherry. Just talking to folks, right? You can learn a lot about what are their interests, what encourages them to maybe want to work and stay in rural districts. You know, what is attractive about living and working in those types of communities. And just doing an educator shortage survey. Great. So again, directly asking educators, you know, what is driving them to want to work in this profession? What do they like about it? And then the hard, cold stats about turnover. So, right, just, you know, what teachers are staying, who's leaving, what grades, maybe what subjects they teach, and even some higher education summaries. Great. So these are all great different types of data sources. I saw a nice mixture of both quantitative and qualitative. And I hope you'll see some connections to those type of data to the GIS map that we'll be showing. And it sounds like you all already have lots of data that you're using all the time, but you might be wondering, okay, well, I already have lots of data. What is the implications or importance of connecting it to a map or place? And so I want to emphasize the importance of place effects. So where a person lives, where they learn, and where they work can have dramatic impact on the outcomes in their life. And so we call these place effects. And they're often the result of unequal access to resources and opportunities. In your own community, you might be aware of a part of town, maybe it's divided by a road due to redlining or some other border. And the people who live on that other side of the road, they might have less access to healthcare services. Maybe there are less grocery stores, so they live in a food desert. Maybe the homes are valued less. And you can imagine those schools then have also fewer or less resources. So you could imagine that the students in those communities face additional challenges outside of the school walls that may be impacting their learning. And those place effects can also apply in the context of educator shortages. So educators, just like most people, they want to work someplace that has a nice environment. So they may want to work somewhere close to where they live, want to have a high salary or good salary, that they want to work with a highly effective school leader. And for some, there may be other factors or systems that are contributing to these place effects. So for example, there may not be an educator preparation program nearby to supply new teachers. And so a GIS application will allow us to see and help unpack some of these place effects in the context of the educator workforce system. So a GIS it's a software application, and it takes kind of layers of data on top of each other onto a map. And I'll give you like a really basic rudimentary example how this might work before demoing the GIS map. So here's a drawing of a map of Colorado. The dots on the map indicate our schools, and the two red dots are our lowest performing schools. And on the right, you can see different data layers. So we might add some additional data, K-12 education data, higher education, labor, socioeconomic data. And then when we layer it on top of each other, we can see the relationships that these other systems might have to schools. And so perhaps maybe unsurprising that our lowest performing schools have some other things going on in relationship to social data, the labor data. And so we can better see the relationships across these different systems and how they might be impacting our schools and our educator workforce pipeline. So GIS helps us to understand the complexity of the state or regional environments so that we can convene the right people to take the right action in the right places. So that was just a quick kind of GIS 101, but I also want to give you a tour of the map that's currently underway, our GIS 2.0. And kind of highlight a few examples of what it looks like in practice and how you might use it, and then just give you a general tour of the features within the map. So in the map, we have it organized by various dashboards, which are indicated by these tabs at the very top of the map. And each of these dashboards are organized around an essential question that really describes what we want to explore within the map. So this first map is looking at the status or patterns of educator mobility and attrition in districts and schools. So in the map portion of this dashboard, you can see the schools are indicated by all the little circles, and the districts are highlighted and colored in blue. On the left side of the map has different filters that allow us to explore and determine different data that we want to show on the map. On the right-hand side will be the legend. And when we look at the other dashboards, you'll see maybe some different tables and charts, as well as boxes that have definitions or explanations of terms. So in this map, we can take a look and maybe we just want to focus at the school level, so we can turn off the districts. Maybe we just want to look at the district level, so we can hide the different schools. And at the district level, we can also filter to not only see the mobility and attrition rates for teachers, but we can look at it for special service providers and principals. We can also look at the difference and trends over 5 years. So has the mobility and attrition rate gone up and down over the last 5 years? And then these slider bars can filter to make some comparisons if we want to look at, in this dashboard, what is the relationship to where the percentage of our students of colors live. We also scaled the mobility and attrition rate to per 100 students so that it would be a fair comparison when we look at rural versus our urban communities. So if we're just looking to see what the mobility and attrition rate looks like at the district level, the districts that are a darker color, they have higher rates of mobility and attrition per 100 students versus the lighter color blue districts. And so if we look, you can click on them, pop-up boxes appear that gives you greater details about the specific district. So this here can reorganize school district 88. This is one that is a dark blue. And maybe we're interested to see, okay, maybe they're struggling this year, but what has been their mobility and attrition rate over the last 5 years? And again, we can see that this district is still one of the darker color ones. So we might want to zoom in to take a closer look in that particular region to see what's going on with that district. And maybe we also want to take a look at the schools. So we can see in this that there's just one school. But also nearby, there's another district that's kind of in the similar region. But over the last 5 years, they're a lighter blue color. And so their mobility and attrition rate has improved. And so there might be an opportunity to convene folks from those districts to talk to one another and learn, what are they doing? What are some of the innovative strategies that might be applicable for similar districts in that region? So again, it has an opportunity for this map to identify not only some of the challenges, but also to think about some of the opportunities. I want to show you one other dashboard just to highlight how this map might work. So this dashboard is focusing on the relationship between the location of preparation programs and district and hiring needs. So similar to the last dashboard, our filters and what data we can control is on the left, our legend is on the right. And of course, today the map is being slow to load, even though it was fine a few minutes ago. So on the map now, the squares and circles indicate the locations of our educator preparation programs. The colors on our districts is telling us the unfilled positions. And we can filter in our drop-down menu to look at what are the unfilled positions by each endorsement area. And then the size of the square and the circle for the prep program can tell you how many graduates they have. So right now we're looking at all endorsement areas, but when we filter, we can look at the endorsement areas graduates for that specific endorsement. So if we want to look and see mathematics, so we'll filter by math and the unfilled positions. And if we look here down at Bayfield School District, they have some unfilled positions in math, but right next door to that school district is Fort Lewis College. Now they've only have 2 graduates in the last cohort, but they, unlike maybe some of these other districts, there is a nearby prep program. So it'd be interesting as an opportunity to bring the district and the prep program together to explore, are there opportunities for a grow your own program or some sort of collaboration in order to give Bayfield School District a supply of math teachers. And so that is one perspective. This dashboard has a second tab here at the bottom that also lets us look to see where do the graduates from these prep programs, what districts hire them. So if we want to look to see, where do the graduates of Fort Lewis College go? And maybe it's specific to math. But when we look, the districts that are highlighted now in blue are where the graduates of Fort Lewis College go. And the darker the color, the more graduates. But interesting enough, there's no blue highlighting in Bayfield School District, which is interesting, right? Because they're right next door. So it would be great, again, to convene these two together to strategize or at least unpack why this might be the case. So the map only tells us so much, right? We still need the folks on the ground to really add that context to unpack the why. But it does help us in the context of place identify some challenges and some opportunities. So I'll just give you a real quick tour of the other dashboards, the questions they explore and what data is behind them. But we won't go nearly as in depth. We showed the mobility and attrition. This second dashboard is labor market, and it's really focusing on some of the other labor market trends, but with hard to fill positions. So we again have data around unfilled positions, shortage mechanisms, and things like median household income, average teacher salary, the unemployment rate, and student to teacher ratio, really again to explore what are the other labor market conditions that might be impacting our educator workforce pipeline. This third dashboard explores incentive programs and how they relate to district mobility and attrition and our ability to fill open positions. So here we're highlighting data from different grant programs that are intended to help fill hard to staff positions and trying to see the relationship to districts that have unfilled positions or higher teacher and mobility rates. So some of the programs include the quality teacher recruitment grant. So we looked at teacher supply. I'll just give you a quick view of the district and school performance dashboard. So in this one, we're unpacking the relationship between district and school performance with teacher mobility and attrition. And similarly, the student populations dashboard looks at the relationship between districts and schools with high at-risk student populations and teacher mobility and attrition. So here we have data looking at the percentage of districts and schools with higher concentration of African-American students, with Hispanic and Latino students, with special education, English language learners, and free and reduced price lunch. And then the last dashboard is focusing on working conditions. So this is where we've taken some qualitative data, like the examples you all shared. So here we're looking to see what's the relationship between the teaching and learning conditions survey to teacher mobility and attrition rate. So we look at the overall scores as well as the leadership score. So again, this was just a real high level overview, not intended to make you experts on how to navigate or understand the GIS map. Just wanted to preview what this map looks like, the kind of data that it has, and how you might be able to use it in your own work to support educator shortages.
So Jessica, I'll ask the question that everybody's probably wondering is, when can people have access to these maps?
Great question. So we are very close to finalizing these maps, and our goals have them available this summer, so around June, when we host these data analysis sessions, and it'll be available on the CDE's website. And so we'll be sure to email and follow up with you all once they're available. Any other questions about the map itself? Okay, so, again, the map and the paper are one set of resources that will be available to anyone who's interested. But to help support the use of the map, we're offering some free technical assistance support as well in connection to the map. And this technical assistance support will be available to teams. So kind of like my Fort Lewis College and Bayfield example, we're hoping to work with teams of nearby districts and prep programs and other community organizations so that we can really dig into the data within your community. So really customized and local. But so if you don't have a team, we're welcome to help you assemble a team, but we're hoping to do some of this work in teams so that we can really look across these different systems, because they're often not just in one district, but many districts and other partner groups. So the two services that we'll provide is first a data analysis session. So this will include a 2-hour virtual meeting in June that will give a customized data analysis session that will be facilitated by the Region 12 experts. So really helping you unpack the data within the GIS map specific to your team's region and community. Then we'll have a community of practice, so bringing together all of the different teams who have an opportunity to hear from experts. They'll get to share best practices and lessons learned and what's working well from colleagues across the state, and work together in your team to develop an action plan for some particular priority or strategy to address educator shortages or any sort of educator workforce challenge. And so that community of practice will start in July and will include 90-minute meetings that will be virtual every month. So at the end of the data analysis session, we hope that the teams will walk away with a memo, and the memo will really outline the findings that you uncover from the GIS analysis. It'll have your hypotheses, so really, what you uncovered from the findings. So what were the specific challenges or opportunities that we identified during that session to strengthen your workforce system? And then any recommendations or priorities that you want to focus on related to those challenges. And then during the community practice, we'll convene together the different teams and be able to share lessons learned, do some collective problem solving, bring any other subject matter experts, maybe folks from other states or districts that have innovative examples from some of the states that we heard today in the paper that Andrea shared, all related to whatever is the strategy or challenge that your team wants to work on. And each team will continue working on this action plan focused on whatever challenge or priority that you identified from the GIS data analysis, any other data that you want to bring. So it's really a database, data-informed practice. And so again, those community practice meetings will start in July and we'll plan to go through September, but can certainly continue those further if it's of interest to the group. Any questions about the data analysis or the community of practice? So I see one question from Harvard, and I think this might be more for you, Andrea, about the examples around educator preparation strategies, if you identified any district or BOCES partnership programs. I don't know if you want to share just a quick example, Andrea.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we identified several. They do not come to mind right now. The brief is quite long and quite detailed, but once you take a look at it in a week or so, you'll be able to see descriptions of those and exactly where they're located and various elements like when they started, how they started, what some of the challenges may have been, who the partnership is with, the funding source, etc. But yes, the short answer to that question is yes, absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Andrea. So a nice teaser to definitely read the brief. Any other questions about the brief or the opportunity to convene some teams to really dig into some data and explore ways we might address challenges and opportunities for educator workforce systems? I've gotten better at the teacher wait time in virtual settings, but it's always a little different. Well, if you have any more questions, feel free to enter those in the chat box, and I will pivot back to Laura, who will share a little bit more about how you can sign up for these additional technical assistance supports.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm going to go over next steps really quickly for the team registration process. You can see the link here, and we will put this in the chat box in just a minute. And I should also say, so we don't lose everyone in the last 10 minutes of the webinar, we will be sharing this link also in the follow-up communication so that you can fill that out if you are interested in participating in one of our data review sessions. And really, that's just for us to find out who we're working with, to learn about the team that you might have assembled, and a little bit more about your context in terms of challenges and approaches that you're using. I do want to stress, as Jessica said, if you are interested in this and you don't have a team yet, we can help with that. So please don't let that deter you from filling out this form and moving forward and participating, because this is a great opportunity and we certainly want to accommodate as many groups as we can. And I will go over our timelines really quickly. If you are interested in participating, we ask that you complete this registration form by May 14th. So you do have a few weeks to confer with colleagues and get that information together. And then a week later, on May 21, we will be reaching out to the teams and notifying them if they are able to participate in this data analysis session. Any questions on that process or next steps? I think it's pretty straightforward, but we are always happy to answer any questions about that. Oh, I do see one here.
Yes, and
that's another question for Andrea. Go
ahead.
Are
the pressures districts are facing to fill positions and the strategies they're using to fill those positions addressed in the brief? Yeah, yes, to a degree. What we did was we tried to provide a bit of context. So if we featured a particular program, like a state in the particular program, what we tried to do is provide a bit of context. So to let you know what shortages looked like within the state context, and what their goals were with creating a particular program, and then how they went about rolling out or implementing the program. So my short answer to that would be yes. We talk about states. In some cases, we talk about districts. But yes, we do talk about the pressure, the need, and of course that looks different for whatever state context we're addressing. Thank you, Valerie, for your question.
I'll wait just a minute to see if we have any additional questions about the brief or any of the other content. And I will thank everyone for participating. We do have a feedback form that I'm going to put in the chat box there, and we would ask that you do complete this now because your feedback is very important to us. So if you could take just a few minutes for that. And if you do have any additional questions, we will show you the contact information for Carolyn and for Dale. You can see their emails here. And you'll also be receiving a follow-up email with additional information. And of course, letting you know when the brief is available since there's been so many questions about that. Well, I want to thank everyone for taking an hour of your time this afternoon and for joining us.
Thank you all. It's good to see some of you again. Appreciate you coming back after last summer and look forward to working with you all and maybe going a little bit deeper with this in the future. So thanks for joining us today.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone as well. And thank you to the team who put together all of this great information. And thank you to those who are viewing it later. We would love to hear from you.